What's up, everyone? When neutron capture got nerfed, I switched almost entirely to using a green tree crit build with Harlowe. What I didn't want to do, though, was completely abandon neutron capture. This is a combo of the green and red tree to still do a ton of damage using neutron capture. It's a lot more gear specific than it used to, so I'll be covering that here in a second, but it's still absolutely viable in endgame. Also, if this kind of video helps you, please hit that sub button. I do this every week. Starting out with our skills, we're still going to use Neutron Capture and Demon Core. What has changed between the previous build and this one is that previously all gun damage instances would create extra damage from Neutron Capture, which that allowed us to use things like Convergence, Katagawa's Revenge, Burt's Bees, things that even though they only fired one shot, they were doing multiple instances of damages. Now it's only going to be the individual gunshots, and all of those gunshots are now converted to radiation damage. So with that, we're going to boost all of our radiation damage while also still boosting our skill damage. So in that, we're starting off with increased action skill damage, but going down, really we're going to look to increase our radiation damage here. Once again, increasing our radiation, our critical hit chance with radiation, because each of our gunshots is now what is doing the most amount of damage. So we want to get those critical hits because that's affecting the actual damage output. Whereas before, if I use something like Convergence, I'd take one shot, but I'd get 10 instances of damage. That didn't matter if we had the critical hits or not. Now it does because each of the bullets is getting the damage as opposed to the bonus in the radiation damage that we were getting. With that, we're going to increase our radiation damage with Chain Reactor, increase our radiation, again, irradiation chance with Poison Sun. The reason we're only going 2 here is because we're going to go down and we want to be able to get Demon Core. Before, we were using things like Fissile Launcher to get some extra radiation damage to put into our neutron capture, but because we need to go down the green skill tree, we want to limit that, so and they don't do as much damage now. So what we're really doing is increasing radiation damage overall for each individual gunshot. Now going into the green skill tree, we're going to increase our critical hit damage because, like I said, it's going off of gunshots now, not gun damage instances. So that's a big change. Then we're going to go into increasing our gun damage with Neutron Decay, but then also that leads us into Resonance Cascade, allowing us to increase our radiation damage. We're going to put 2 more points in here just to get some action skill cooldown. But really the star of the show now, whereas before it was all about the skill damage, is going to be Decoherence. And you can see I have 10 out of 5 here. That's because of class mod. We won't always have 10 out of 5 because the class mods are going to be changing between bossing and mobbing, but I'll show you that here in a second. Decoherence gives us bonus damage, so we're dealing with 10 out of 5, dealing 50% bonus damage to entangled enemies. Now that's a huge increase. If you think every single shot that hits, it gets another half of that is going to do extra damage. So again, all this increased damage is going to be boosted because it's all going to be radiation damage, and we're increasing our radiation damage through these various things. And then you can see with neutron capture, that's where all the damage is being converted to. Also going forward, we're going to have 4 in the last 4 points are going to go into Make Extraordinary. This way we just get critical hit chance with skills. The more skill damage we do, the more damage we can do with our guns in after neutron capture explodes. This is really just the last 4 points. Previously we had made sure to put all 5 points here, and this was an important one. It's not as important as things like Decoherence and the increased radiation damage that we're getting from some of these skills. Alright, now going over our gear, you're going to want to look for something that has a high fire rate, high magazine size. Something like a Lucian's Flank Wombo Combo works really well because the rockets get the increase from neutron capture. Lucian Flank, like I said, works really well. Something like a Whiskey Foxtrot, because of its overdrive, it generally has a much higher magazine size. It's not as strong as something like a Lucian's Flank or a Wombo Combo, but it works. And then also one thing I found that I was messing around with this week was the Rowdy Rider that you can use, that you can get from the new DLC that was free for everyone. The Rowdy Rider works really well on things like drill sites where you have 3 bosses at the end, which you can see on screen now. Also works really well for the drill sites or tight quarters areas because it hits more than one ricochet and gets many enemies caught in this, so you can hit more with your neutron capture. That worked really well for mobbing. I was a big fan of that. Like I said, Lucian's Flank Wombo Combo are the 2 I would recommend going with. You can also use something like a Space Laser from the Oscar Mike. It works well, but I don't have a strong enough one to make it do a ton of damage. but it does put out a lot of damage even with some of the weaker ones. Going down to our rep kit, I'm using the mini kill spring. I wouldn't say this is absolutely necessary, but I would highly recommend it. Because there is 0 survivability in this build, you want to have something that gives you healing back, so getting that blood siphon bonus is a big benefit. Then I'm going to use the super soldier. This increases our fire rate by 25%, and I'm combining that with an enhancement that does fire rate and magazine size increases to be able to do the most amount of damage. For our class mod, this is where there's a little bit of changes. We have one for mobbing, one for bossing. We're using the skeptic for mobbing because of the bottom line there, shooting enemies with an active status effect restores 5% of the action skill. This allows us to get our action skill back more often, because without our action skill and without neutron capture active, we're not very strong at all. So we want to have that up as much as possible. For bossing, we're going to go into a reactor class mod. The reason for this is we want that +5 into decoherence, getting that bonus damage. That's what's going to do us the absolute best for bossing. But for mobbing and some bossing, the skeptic will work just fine. I have forgotten to change it, and it's not until bosses get at the higher health pools that I realized something wasn't going right, or their health isn't going down as fast. That's when it clicks in me that I didn't switch my class mod. So if you're in a boss fight and you realize something's not feeling right about it, check your class mod. That might be where you're going astray. For my ordnance, I just have a jelly on here because I was using it for bullets to spare. Use whatever works best for you. Something like a waterfall is great for vile enemies if you're having trouble with them, but use whatever you can get your hands on with bullets to spare. Now going into our specializations, this isn't the ideal setup. I'd ideally like to have a honed mine with I am a gun and riddle you this with the best defense, but as you can see, I'm 1 point off at the moment, which is really depressing. But we're going to use these 3. This boosts our action skill. This is going to boost our gun damage, which will also boost our action skill. This is going to boost our overall damage when we have a full shield. If you're having trouble keeping your shield up, use a shield with a siphon on it to give you the overshield or give the extra shield back. That'll help you keep that up, but this is going to give you the most amount of damage going into a boss fight when your shield should already be full. And then I'm running with Bullet Train just to give me the extra gun damage while I'm moving. And that's it for the updated neutron capture build. Drop a like and hit that sub button. It really helps channel grow. See ya!